held, and they spent the evening square dancing. Now, unfortunately, Doolittle hasn't lived up to the glorious transformation from Centerville. It's still a quiet little town with a big highway running through it, but for one day it was a glorious place to be. It might be a long time before anything as big happens again in that little community west of Rolla, as big as the day the General visited Doolittle on this date, the 11th of October, in 1946.
Hi, friends. Did you miss a recent episode of First Cup? Or maybe you'd like to hear one or more of my old shows again? Then may I suggest a couple of convenient ways you could go back in time and hear an old show again. Check me out on Stitcher by either downloading the app from the opening page of my website, tinyurl.com/Gunther'sHouse, on your PC, Mac, Linux, or tablet computer, or on your smartphone at tinyurl.com/GuntherMobile. That's good on your Android, iOS, or Windows phone. Also, you can check out this app by going to your phone's online store, or download the Spreaker app by going to your phone's online store as well. Part of the soundtrack to my favorite episode of the original Knight Rider, Junkyard Dog. This is the music used when Kit was rebuilt, and after Mike's little pep talk with Kit to remind him that we have to face our fears. And I'm one to know about that. Well, anyway, coming up in a little bit, we'll have the CBS World News Roundup, News of the Weird shortly there afterwards, along with the Friday Funnies. Popular tweets of the day, what's on TV tonight, a few things coming up this weekend, and a special tribute to my dad a little bit later on. In the meantime, we'll have a market update from APM Radio coming up right now.
In a world without government statistics,
balance your life with dollar signs. Tune into Marketplace Money this weekend for a look at the issues affecting your wallet. Whether it's investing, renting an apartment, or sending your kid off to college, we'll help you navigate.
From APM in New York, I'm David Brancaccio with the Marketplace Midday Update. The biggest of banks today reported its first quarterly loss since CEO Jamie Dimon took power. J.P. Morgan Chase is stuck in a web of legal and regulatory probes, and its legal bills are huge. When you adjust for this, profits were decent, and in early trading, Morgan's stock went up 1.5%. The big name in home loans is Wells Fargo. Its profits today were up 13%, although mortgage lending was way down this quarter. Its stock in early trading was also down. On Fridays, we check in with Chris Lowe, a man who is normally fully laden with economic statistics from the government. Morning, Chris.
Good morning, David.
But with the shutdown, it's no longer visual flight rules. You're flying on instruments, I think. Can you tell me anything about, for instance, back-to-school retail sales in September?
Well, yeah, it's exactly like flying on instruments. We have reports today from retailers in the Wall Street Journal, on Bloomberg, that back-to-school sales were disappointing despite aggressive discounting. So the problem is these data don't always agree with the government data, and that's because the biggest retailer, Walmart, doesn't report monthly anymore. So we've got sort of this glaring gap.
So it would be nice to get the government data on retail sales in September. That's due Tuesday, but who knows if it'll come out with the government shutdown.
Well, that's right, And, of course, the offer that's on the table right now is to extend the debt ceiling, which honestly would be a very good thing, but not to reopen the government. So we'll have to see what they come up with over the weekend.
Now, here's something interesting, Chris. Reports that Hong Kong authorities are telling stock market investors there that if they want to use U.S. Treasuries as collateral, they got to pony up more of the Treasuries since the U.S. isn't as trustworthy?
This is actually, it is kind of troubling because in the world of collateral, a dollar is a dollar. U.S. government securities are the safest thing you can post, and so you don't have to provide as much of it. To me, this is somewhat reminiscent of 2 summers ago when exchanges around the world told people who had posted Greek debt that they had to pony up more because there was a threat of default there.
Great. And in this comparison, the United States is now being thought of as a kind of Greece. Chris Lowe, FTN Financial, thank you very much.
Thank you, David.
Also today, the Wall Street Journal is reporting that the government is rethinking how it releases economic statistics during normal times. There's a concern some investors are getting a jump on some of that data. The Journal cites unnamed sources and calls the reevaluation preliminary.
Looking for a good read? Visit the Big Book blog at marketplace.org. Listen to author interviews and read excerpts from the Marketplace bookshelf. Online at marketplace.org/thebigbook.
Under the new changes to health care in America, many people are just learning that they can get bigger discounts if they take steps to get healthier. Workplace wellness plans can now offer a carrot of up to 30% off the premium. Lunchtime yoga is one thing, but what if this requires wearing a health tracking device? Stan Alcorn reports.
Sam Bernstein is standing by her desk, on her smartphone, scrolling through her coworkers' sleep habits.
I'm like, Elise didn't get that much deep sleep. Sarah Kay did. Kalisa, great night's sleep. I think that's cool.
They all work at Tasting Table, a daily email for foodies. And for the last week, they've been using the Jawbone Up, a rubber wristband that tracks your steps and your sleep. They got them at a staff lunch.
Okay, everybody, hello.
Where CEO Jeff Bartikovics presented them as a fitness benefit.
What's one of the challenges around working at Tasting Table when it comes to health? Lauren?
Too much food.
Whoever walks the most wins fitness classes. But big insurance companies are backing software that could help employers tie that tracking data to lower monthly premiums.
It's a surveillance program. It's a self-surveillance program.
Heather Patterson is a privacy law scholar who thinks this is an area that needs more regulation. She says 24/7 tracking comes with a risk of oversharing.
People tend to forget that they're wearing them. They forget that this data is being collected all of the time and transmitted.
From tracking when you go to bed to how much you weigh, that personal data is potentially useful to doctors and insurers. But mobile health expert Deborah Estrin says the main use is to help motivate people.
The research has already been done to know what's not good and what people could be doing to lead healthier lives. The puzzle is that it's clearly so hard to make those changes.
At Tasting Table, the changes have been pretty modest. A week into the bracelet experiment, Sam Bernstein says she gets excited when she has time to walk home.
And the other day I was making coffee and I was waiting for it to finish brewing. And so I was just like walking laps around the island over there.
Her motivation doesn't come from winning a prize. It's more about good old-fashioned peer pressure from her coworkers.
It's fun that everyone's doing it. I don't know how interested I'd be if it was just me.
In New York, I'm Stan Alcorn for Marketplace.
And it was the week that the president nominated Janet Yellen to become chair of the Federal Reserve, accompanied by many reminders that this is arguably the most powerful economic policy position in the world. In the October 7th New Yorker magazine, there's a David Cyprus cartoon. At home with Ben Bernanke, it says. The cartoon depicts the current Fed chairman alone at the dinner table looking frightened. From off in the kitchen, someone's hollering.
And if you think that every time you open your mouth around here, everyone's going to dance to your tune, you've got another thing coming, Mr. Federal Reserve.
That's my colleague Katie Long doing the dramatic reading, but I'd like to hear you reading Cyprus's caption aloud. Go to our website where you can record it at a thing called Marketplace Voicemail, and we will play the best one on the air next week. Marketplace.org, of course, is the site. In New York, I'm David Brancaccio with the Marketplace Midday Update from APM, American Public Media.
Get your hand off my penis! This is the bloke who got me on the penis before. Gentlemen, this is Democracy Manifest.
Talks on the federal fiscal mess.
Hopefully we can see a way forward.
The Nobel Peace Prize.
The Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons.
Glee honors one of its own.
If I die young, bury me in sadness.
Good morning. I'm Steve Kathan with the CBS World News Roundup. The wheels are turning in Washington. Some hope amid the haggling. A Republican offer on the debt ceiling and a meeting at the White House was enough to spark a stock surge on Wall Street. CBS's Bob Fuss begins our coverage on day 11 of the partial government shutdown.
After a 90-minute White House meeting last night, talks turned serious, and there now appears to be real efforts underway to end the government shutdown and avoid default. House Republican leader Eric Cantor.
We had a very useful meeting. It was clarifying, I think, for both sides as to where we are.
Republicans began by backing down from their earlier demands and offering to extend the debt ceiling for 6 weeks without strings. The president didn't accept that, say Republicans, but didn't reject it either. And talks now include the question of how to get the government open again.
I'm Dan Raviv in Washington. Here's the White House point of view. Progress has been made, and officials say the president looks forward to continuing to make progress with members of both parties. Today, Republicans from the Senate will visit Mr. Obama. The White House believes most Senate Republicans are more likely to compromise than the more conservative House.
I'm Barry Bagnotto. Republican leaders here in Washington want any White House concession they can present to Tea Party lawmakers, perhaps a rollback of a medical device tax, which is widely unpopular, but which provides $30 billion in Obamacare funding. CBS News political director John Dickerson.
What we're talking about here is really what the purchase price is of opening the government again. And that's still a big hurdle because the White House has always said, we're not going to offer up things because you shut down the government. And that's what they're trying to figure out.
One thing certainly motivating movement, growing disenchantment with Republicans. A new Wall Street Journal NBC News poll finds the party has its lowest approval rating in the 24-year history of the survey.
I'm Jim Chenevey. The Obama administration is allowing states to reopen national parks, including Utah, where Ali Isom is deputy chief of staff to the governor.
The state of Utah will provide funds for the federal government to operate the national park.
Good news for Cade Campbell of the Spotted Dog Cafe outside Zion National Park.
This is a very, very critical month for the town because it's just going into our slow season, and it's typically a very busy month.
At least 4 states plan to reopen parks.
A day after a charity pitched in, President Obama signed a bill to restore military death benefits. It had passed the Senate earlier in the day. CBS News business analyst Jill Schlesinger tells us investors who signed on to the optimism emerging from Washington may be more reflective and cautious today.
The pre-markets are indicating a flat opening. That could change at any minute based on any news release throughout the day. But be clear, this volatile period will persist until we have a deal that is settled.
In the business world, Starbucks CEO Howard Schultz is trying to get other top CEOs to sign a petition demanding an end to the partial government shutdown.
Please, and I'm pleading on behalf of so many people who do not have a voice, reach a long-term, bipartisan, comprehensive, long-term budget deal, not a short-term, kick-the-can solution that we will be revisiting in the middle of the holiday season.
The Starbucks customers can sign that petition, too. Overseas, a group that's trying to rid the world of chemical weapons has won the Nobel Peace Prize. The Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons is 16 years old and is playing a role now in the effort to dismantle chemical weapons in Syria.
Events in Syria have been a tragic reminder that there remains much work yet to be done.
Ahmet Uzemcu is Director General of the organization. Syria is poised to become a new member of that group. There's word Secretary of State Kerry is in Afghanistan for new talks on the U.S. troop presence and security. An American detained in North Korea has been visited by his mother.
I miss him so much.
Myung-gi Bae saw her son Kenneth, a missionary, at a North Korean hospital.
He looks so different, and he lost so much weight. I could not believe that prisoner was my son.
Before being moved to that hospital, Bae was in prison serving 15 years hard labor. He was arrested last November leading a group of tourists. He's 45 and has a number of medical issues, including diabetes, liver problems, and an enlarged heart. Government opponents are going to court in Azerbaijan to challenge this week's presidential election. The results were announced a day before people actually voted in the former Soviet republic. The final tally indicates President Ilham Aliyev got 85% of the vote. Well, 3 California poultry processing plants linked to a new salmonella outbreak can remain open, at least for now. The company released a statement.
Foster Farm products are safe and wholesome to consume if properly handled and fully cooked.
And so did the USDA, putting out a statement saying Foster Farms has made changes to some of its procedures and government inspectors will keep a close eye for the next 3 months. The salmonella outbreak has sickened 278 people in 17 states. This morning, we remember one of this country's original astronauts, Scott Carpenter, the second American to orbit the Earth, who died yesterday at 88. Here's CBS's Peter King.
Mercury astronaut Scott Carpenter's most famous words came on the ground.
Godspeed, John Glenn.
3 months later, he followed his close friend into orbit.
Hello, you say Capcom, Aurora 7, loud and clear on me.
Carpenter's flight was a success, but his landing was 250 miles off target. While NASA was upset,
I didn't mind that at all. I had the great good fortune of being